If you needed any further evidence that this government is way out of its depth, just look at what it decided to do yesterday. With Iran in the position in which it finds itself, with all the events that went on between the United Kingdom, the US and Russia, with Russia supposedly almost like shadow ships coming in too close to British waters, with the effective seizing of Maduro in Venezuela, everything else going on in the world, only this government would decide to put out the Transport Secretary to talk about potholes. Seriously. As one commentator, Richard Littlejohn, often writes, you couldn't make it up. You really couldn't. Clearly neither Sir Keir Starmer is the man for the job or the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is the woman for the job. They just not got it. But let's tell you about these protests. They began back in December 28th, as I recall. What are the main concerns? Well, try living with inflation of 40+% and a currency that's been devalued by 80% over the last 12 months. Here are some of the demonstrations from last month. Now, there is hope among Iranians that President Trump will step in and back efforts to liberate the country or take some form of decisive action. Speaking with Fox News, Iran's exiled Prince Reza Pahlavi urged the president to step in.
They believe that this time they are empowered by the hope that you have their back. Your words of solidarity with the Iranian people and your administration has had tremendous positive effect. Let's hope that we can permanently seal this legacy by liberating Iran so that we and you can make Iran great again.
At least in President Trump, the United States has a leader who's prepared to address it. Here he is speaking on Air Force One overnight.
There seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options.
And what of British response? Well, as I mentioned earlier, Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander was on the round yesterday talking about potholes. She did say this.
The most ideal situation is that there is a peaceful resolution to the protests that are underway, that no further lives are lost, no more blood is spilled. The wishes of the Iranian people are ultimately fulfilled. I don't think any leader of any country would say that they want to first rush to reach for military action.
Former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat, who you might have seen on one of the television news bulletins, pretty punchy last night. He joins us in a minute or three. But first to Emily Schradert, who's a journalist and Middle East expert, specialising in Israel-Iranian relations and developments there. Can you update us? I know it's desperately difficult and they're trying to impose pretty much a news blackout. The figures that we've got, Emily, are looking at 500 plus people have lost their lives, 10,000 under arrest. Can you update us at all? Morning to you.
Good morning. So we do know that at least 538 were confirmed as of yesterday. Certainly it's gone up. Even late last night, we saw that they had disrupted even the Starlink internet using what's believed to be Chinese jammers, signal jammers. So they've been able to successfully shut down even much of the power left in Starlink. So getting information out of Iran has been extremely difficult. I have a few sources on the ground that I'm in touch with who are using Starlink. I've only been able to be in touch with one of them since all of this started. So that should give you an idea of how this is going. We also see that despite all this cutoff, the protests are continuing. I mean, I think the people are truly more determined than ever to actually bring down this regime, which is what they're calling for. The economic situation has only been one trigger of many that exists in Iran for many people who are on the streets today, that include people of all different ethnic backgrounds within Iran, people of all ages. We even saw a woman being pushed around in a wheelchair who was participating in the protest. So it really is everybody in the streets. And unfortunately, we're seeing really, I mean, since 2009, we haven't seen this level of brutality against the people. There are reports, people I spoke to, who said that they just opened fire indiscriminately on large groups of people. And he himself saw dozens of people fall to the ground injured or killed. We also know medics are reporting that they see tons of gunshot wounds to the chest and to the head, and that the hospitals are overflowing, not only with injured, but also with dead bodies from these protests. So it's a very gruesome scene, very upsetting to see what's happening. And that is why the people are really looking to Trump in desperation for a lifeline.
Well, you've anticipated my next question, Emily. These incredibly brave protesters, what are they looking for from the West, from President Trump, from Europe, from the UK? Emily?
Well, I think that from Europe, they're hoping for more support than what they've heard so far, at least in word, at the very least. But beyond that, I know they're looking at President Trump because he's made statements of support already, which is something that's given a lot of momentum to them on the ground. Now, that support could be militarily, but it could also be a lot of other things. It could be logistical support. It could be cyber disruptions. It could be internet connectivity. Any of these things are options that the United States can explore for assisting the people on the ground. At the same time, there are also a lot of Iranians who would be more than happy for targeted assassinations of their leaders and also targeted strikes on IRGC sites, which is something that I know the United States has been exploring, and also the state of Israel as well. Yesterday, we saw that Prime Minister Netanyahu had a meeting with Donald Trump about what's happening in Iran. So the people of Iran are desperate to the point where they will really be willing to accept almost anything from foreign intervention to help bring down this regime.
Emily, really enjoyed our conversation. I sense we'll be speaking again. Thanks for all the background that you can glean from the ground. Emily Schradert, 11 after 7. Listening to that, Conservative MP and former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat, who joins me now. What do we need to see from the UK government in your view, Mr Tugendhat? Good morning.
Morning, Nick. It's good. It's good to be with you. Look, I think the first thing that we need to see is clarity. You know, we need to see the absolute clarity from our government that we side with the protesters, that we reject this regime that has not only done enormous violence to the people of Iran, but also to the people of the Middle East. And by the way, to people here. I mean, you spoke about the lower murder rate in London earlier. Well, that's no help to the Iranians, frankly. As MI5 have already told us, there's been 20 or so serious attempts at assassinations here in the United Kingdom, most of them in London, including, by the way, on journalists. So what we need to see is clarity there. The second thing we need to see is diplomats frozen out. And the third thing we need to see is we need to make sure that no money is getting into that country. Now, to be fair, the UK doesn't have much Iranian money. We froze it up a long time ago, but putting pressure on others is really important now.
With the severity of events in Tehran and the rest of the country, were you, like me, a little surprised we didn't hear from either the Foreign Secretary or the Prime Minister over the weekend? Rather, we heard about potholes.
Well, look, I mean, I'm not going to criticise whoever the government chooses to put up, but it was pretty striking to hear speaking points rather than thought and engagement. You know, it's up to the government, obviously, who they choose to speak for them, but it doesn't suggest a very clear prioritisation in the country's interest, because while, you know, we all know potholes are irritating, and I spend a hell of a lot of time dealing with them in Kent, as you know very well. Yeah, the reality is the principal threat to the United Kingdom, or the principal opportunity for the United Kingdom today, is the peaceful transfer of power in Iran that could lead to a massive increase in cooperation with Iran, lower energy costs, and a hell of a boost to the British economy and to every driver across our country.
Your Conservative colleague, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, has a piece in today's Daily Telegraph. He reminds us this is the 5th time people have taken to the streets in Iran to protest against the government since the start of the millennium. Tom Tugendhat, do you sense this might be the one to break the dam?
Yes, I do. And the reason I think it's different is for some of the reasons you've already mentioned, which is, of course, the massive inflation rate. So around the time of the revolution in 79, it was about 70, 80 riyals, Iranian riyals to the dollar. It's now 1.4, 1.5 million, which tells you what the inflation rate is like. Secondly, it's the level of violence we've seen. Last year, 2025, we saw double the number of executions, in inverted commas, legal. And obviously they're not legal, they're utterly brutal, but you know what I mean, carried out by the state in a formal way over the year before. And the third thing is which suggests, by the way, that the state is getting weaker. And the third thing is the change in demographics. You know, way over half the Iranians alive today, about 90 million Iranians who live in Iran today, were born after the 79 revolution. All they've known is corruption and murder and violence, and they don't remember whatever the supposed crimes of the late king were. All they remember is the crimes of the Ayatollahs. And so the time has basically run out. It's aged out, if you like. The revolution is old, it's tired, and it's lost ideas.
Lastly, briefly, if you can, Tom, let's look across to Donald Trump. What action do you think he should take? What are your concerns? Because you can never quite call it with President Donald J. Trump.
Well, you're going to understand. I'm not going to guess what he may or may not do, Nick. That's a fool's errand.
What should he do?
My only caution is Britain and the United States have, as you may remember from the Mossadegh Revolution in the 50s, had at various different points not altogether helpful relationships with the Iranian people. So I'm just very, very cautious. Now, I do appreciate that this is different in the sense that the Ayatollahs are quite clearly the hated party in this. But let's just be extremely cautious. My view is the thing that we should be doing is making sure that the Iranians have access to information. And although I hear that Starlink is being blocked, I am told by Iranian friends through family and so on that satellite TV is still getting through in various different ways. So we must make sure people have access to information. Journalism is incredibly important, as you know better than me. And we need to make sure that people know that they're supported. The second thing we need to do, the US, Britain, and many others in the region, prepare for the transfer of power. Make sure you've got medicines, food, and everything ready to get in there, because those people are going to need a hell of a lot of help really quickly.
And in a sentence, I did mean to raise this with you. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith says we must ban the IRGC. I would imagine you'd be in accord with Sir Ian on that as well, Tom.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, OK. All right, grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Tom Tugendhat, Conservative MP, former Security Minister, joining us already, taking us to 16 minutes after 7.